Good day traders, this is Stefanos on behalf of Tixee, and in today's video we'll be giving an outlook of the market for the week of the 4th until the 8th of April. Before we dive into the webinar, listing some of the key highlights we'll be discussing for next week are the FOMC meeting minutes, which are going to be taking place on Wednesday, and where we'll likely get some further updates with regards to the rate hike cycle of the US. The next highlight will also be the employment data coming out of Canada on Friday, as well as the downgrades that Dell Corporation received on last Friday. As always, please note that all of the ideas discussed in this webinar are my own opinions and do not make up for any form of investment or trading advice, neither any recommendations to buy or sell. You should always do your own research and due diligence before buying or selling any securities, financial products, or instruments, and whether you use any kind of trading strategies. Any information that relates to past performance is not indicative to future results. Now, as we said, looking at stocks, we're going to be looking at Dell Corporation. As we mentioned during the intro, this stock specifically Dell, is perhaps something to look out for with the open on Monday, as well as potentially later down the week. Now, Dell was downgraded not by one, but by two major US banks. Specifically, the stock was downgraded by Morgan Stanley on Thursday, and it was then followed by a downgrade from Goldman Sachs on Friday. Now, Goldman Sachs downgraded the stock from a buy to neutral rating, changing also its price target on the stock from $68 to $61. Now, looking at the daily time frame, we can see that essentially prices are now trading at $48, so they're more or less $13 off of the price target that Goldman Sachs is giving on the stock. Now, the impact from these two major downgrades could already be seen on Friday, as the stock fell by 10.93% or almost $6 per share on the day. And we can also clearly see this from the huge gap down that we had. We had the first downgrade, and then we had the major gap down here, and then we had the second downgrade, and then we had another major gap down here. So it would definitely be a stock to keep on watch, at least for the open on Monday, and then potentially later down the week as well, in case it has some increased volatility. So yeah, Dell is the stock in the highlight for today's webinar. Now, moving on to Forex, we're going to be looking at some of the key events for next week, and by looking at those, we're essentially going to have a look at the economic calendar. Now, the economic calendar you can, as always, very easily find through Tixee's website. You can just click on the logo on the top left to go back to the homepage. Then you navigate to the Education Research tab, and then onto the economic calendar. Now, here you can obviously readjust all of the data for next week. You can just press on the button here, and then you can filter by the importance, the countries, and so on and so forth. For the sake of this video, we're going to be looking at the medium and high impact events. And remember, looking at the timestamps right here, they're all going to be in the UK's time zone. So obviously, remember to readjust this according to the time zone that you're in. Now, on Monday, as you can see, we're going to be having the trade balance coming out of Germany, which is going to be for the month of February. And this is also a high impact event, as we can see by the label right there. Now, it's also important, and something that I always like mentioning, to keep an eye on the little tooltip right here, as it gives you an indication to what kind of volatility you can expect, at least in the 4 hours after the event. Because here, essentially, we can see that we had 26 pips of volatility in the 4 hours after the past event. So it doesn't mean we're obviously going to get 26 pips of volatility again on this occasion, but we could get an idea of what range to expect with regards to this event specifically. Now, after this event, this is going to be followed later on during the day by the Bank of England Governor Bailey's speech, which is going to be coming out at 10 in the morning. This pretty much wraps up Monday. Then on Tuesday, we're going to be having the interest rate decision by the Reserve Bank of Australia. It's going to be at 5:30 in the morning UK time. Again, this is obviously a high impact event. We can see the label right there. And the rates are expected to remain the same, with the with the forecast figure being at 0.1%, as you can see it right here. And the previous one was also 0.1%. So we can see that we are expecting to keep the rates unchanged. Again, you can also see that we have the same tooltip with regards to the volatility that's expected, more or less, if we just take into account the past event. Now, looking further later during the day, this again, looking at Tuesday, we're going to be having the balance of trade, or the trade balance for the US at midday, which is also going to be released at the exact same time as the Canadian trade balance. So definitely, some events or currencies to keep an eye on are obviously going to be the ones that are directly related or paired with the US dollar and the Canadian dollar, as both of these events are going to be released at pretty much the exact same time. This pretty much wraps up Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we just scroll a little bit further down. We're going to be having the FOMC meeting minutes, which is also the event we mentioned during the intro highlights as well. This is going to be released at 7 p.m. in UK time. Again, we have the usual, the tooltip with the volatility, and the label, of course, with the high impact event. Of course, you're not going to get a forecast figure or anything like this with regards to this event, as it's obviously a speech. So it's definitely something to maybe you can have a read at the report that's going to be released later on. If you want, you can also watch it live, but we're likely going to be getting some further hints with regards to the rate hike cycle for the US. Then on Thursday, we'll be having the trade balance figure coming out of Australia. So you can see a few countries are actually going to be releasing this figure. You already mentioned the US and Canada, who will be doing the same on Tuesday. Again, high impact event, and you can see the previous figure as well as the forecast figure as well. We'll have the unemployment rate coming out of Switzerland, and then later on during the day we'll have the retail sales figure coming out of the Eurozone. And then lastly, on Friday, the other event that we mentioned in the highlights of the intro is going to be the employment data coming out of Canada. As you can see, we have a series of events that are going to be released for the Canadian dollars. But in my opinion, the more important ones are going to be the unemployment rate, which is right here. You can also see the high impact label, as well as the employment change. And yeah, this pretty much wraps up the economic calendar and what to look out for Forex. Again, there might be other events that you prefer trading. So again, you can see all of them outlined here. And again, you can use the filters as we said right here, in order to choose which kind of events you want to have in front of you. Now, next up, we're going to be looking at oil and gold. Now, we'll of course await for further developments with regards to the Russian and Ukraine conflict. More specifically for oil, the usual suspect in terms of the fundamentals is of course going to be the oil inventory report, which is going to come out on Wednesday, as well as any further updates as far as the amount of supply the US will be willing to tap into through its strategic reserves in order to meet the current demand. Now, if we look on the technical side of things, this is the daily time frame. As we can see, oil has been selling off pretty much after reaching the $126 mark. We crossed down below $100. We're pretty close to it. It's around about $98.50. But we can see that we have these lows right here, which we could potentially tap into before finding some support right here. The same situation applies for gold as well, in the sense that we broke below key psychological and round numbers. With regards to gold, we broke again below the $2,000 mark, which we had broken above a few days or weeks prior. We're actually trading well below it, now trading at $1,923, so we're pretty much $80 off of the round number right here. So there is a little bit of range to work with regards to both of the commodities. Again, there are going to be two assets that are going to be heavily affected by the fundamental events you're going to be having, whether it's the oil inventory report or any additional headlines with regards to the Russian-Ukraine conflict. And then lastly, we're going to be looking at some cryptocurrencies and specifically Bitcoin. Now, as we can see, the prices of Bitcoin are now trading above the into a 21 period EMA. We broke above it last week, and we can see that we firmly held above it again this week as well. As we can also see, I highlighted this area here with the two red lines. The price is trading towards the upper end of an ascending channel, and it's looking towards potentially retesting the upper limit, which is close to the key end round number of $50,000. If I just scroll the cursor right here, you can see it's round about going to be tapping into the $50,000 mark. On the fundamental side of things, we also had a report from Cointelegraph, which said that we had the 19th millionth Bitcoin being mined on Friday, which is a landmark occasion. This essentially means that there are 19 million Bitcoin now in circulation, with only 2 million Bitcoin yet to be mined. Now this sign could be seen something that is indicating tight supplies, and which it could build the narrative for prices to be boosted even further, which is where we'll also be getting the retest of this upper end of this ascending channel here. We can also see down below with the RSI, we just crossed above the 50 mark, so we could have some further room for upside and potentially retesting the upper end of the RSI, which is going to be the 70 mark on my chart. And yeah, there you have it. This is as far as the outlook for next week's markets. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, trade safe.